So during this past Super Bowl, Josh Norman, who of course was with the Panthers, essentially got the best of Broncos receiver Demaryius Thomas. Thomas had 6 passes thrown in his direction, but caught only 1 for 8 yards. So Norman bragged about owning this matchup in a piece for ESPN the magazine on Newsstands Friday, saying, quote, "I don't know what he was out there for. He was supposed to be an all-world guy, and I shut him down." Demaryius got wind of Norman's comments and tweeted a photo of his Super Bowl ring and directed a message to Norman, writing, check this out, "Where yours at, young fella?" Max?
Yeah.
Do you like, love, or hate Demaryius' response?
I love Demaryius' response. First of all, Norman is, of course, there are corner wide-out matchups, but as Damian pointed out earlier, that's not exactly the way Carolina was playing. Secondly, as one guy on a team that hasn't done anything yet, that was just playing on a team that lost to the team that won the Super Bowl, is making it about his one-on-one matchup with the other star, in this case, the wideout, Demaryius Thomas. That guy who played on the winning team, his response is really all about the team, like, okay, say whatever you want to say. I'm not even going to deal with whether or not it's true. Don't argue. A wise man once told me, don't argue with fools because people from a distance can't tell who is who.
Love that quote.
Quote Jay-Z a lot on this show.
That.
But what he does is just tweet back the ultimate team response. Hey, young fella, I got one of these. You make it about you and me. I'll make it about this. I love that response.
Damian?
Man, revenge is served best cold. So what better way to clap back at somebody who talking reckless, who's talking crazy, than by flossing that hardware online or right in their face? Like, you need to get in this club before you talk to me, bro. Literally, like you can't even have discussions. You can't even talk to me directly. You're not even in this fraternity right now. I got something that you don't even have. You might not ever get. So the fact that Josh Norman is even talking about, oh, you know, 1 catch or whatever for 8 yards, what difference does that make? You don't have the ice. You don't have the ring.
There's levels.
Bro, sit down somewhere. Go check your bank account because you got paid well. You eating good and watching it. But for you to come at somebody who just beat you in the Super Bowl, come on, man.
Yeah, where's your chip? No, I love it. I'm with you. But I want to hear Stephen A's response.
Yeah, be wrong about this one.
Nope, you got to stay tuned for that quick break. Stephen A will respond, and you might be surprised by that when we return.
First Take is brought to you by Exxon and Mobil. Refuel with new Synergy gasoline from Exxon and Mobil. Energy lives here.
So quick recap in case you're just joining us here. Earlier, we were discussing Josh Norman. He's been talking a lot. He said that he owned Demaryius Thomas, 8 passes thrown his way during the Super Bowl. He caught only 1. We heard both of your responses. So Demaryius responded on Twitter with a shot of his Super Bowl ring saying, "Where's yours, young fella?" And we heard both Damian and Max saying that they're good with it. Stephen A., we haven't heard your response, though. Do you like, love, or hate that response by Thomas?
I hated it. I get where my man Damian Woody's coming from. I mean, he would know something about Super Bowl championships, nothing but respect for that. I get where you're coming from. I'll have a comment about that another day. Here's the thing about Demaryius Thomas.
You hate it.
I hate it, and here's why. Because even though it is a team game, individual exploits do matter. And when you haven't done your job, I got an issue with you. Divisional playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Demaryius Thomas, you know, the $70 million man, Demaryius Thomas, had 4 receptions for 40 yards. The AFC Championship game, okay? What did Demaryius Thomas have? 2 receptions for 12 yards. And in that Super Bowl game against Josh Norman, you had 1 reception for 8 yards. Now, I have no problem. I want you to be mindful of opening your mouth if you're Josh Norman, particularly when you're calling the commissioner names, particularly when you're calling out Demaryius Smith for the NFLPA, particularly when you haven't produced and watched it yet. I have no doubt he will produce. I have no doubt he's big time. He's one of the top 5 corners in the game. He's a good brother. I just wish him well. But I want him to watch himself. In the case of Demaryius Thomas, who's had 4 consecutive 1,300-plus yard seasons, and deserved his money when he got it. We all talk about prime time now. And I ain't talking about Deion Sanders here, even though there's a reason he's prime time. I mean, Deion Sanders was so prime time, we don't even need to talk about him in the daytime. That's how prime time he was, okay? Because he showed up when it was time. And, Damian, you can appreciate the fact that you're supposed to show up when it's time. Yeah. Demaryius Thomas Demaryius Thomas had 40, 12, and 8 yards in 3 playoff games.
Who's throwing
that
the
came
ball?
to stop it.
The remains of Peyton Manning?
Did I finish?
Brock Osweiler?
Did I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Zip it. I did not. I zipped it. I sat in. I kept my mouth shut. Okay, it's my turn. Here's the deal. In 3 games, combined with the money on the line, the man had 60 yards. 60 in 3 games combined. Now, I understand that Peyton Manning wasn't Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning looked pretty decent against Pittsburgh.
Oh.
Peyton Manning, at times, listen, I'm not making a case for him. I've been on Peyton Manning big time. It was time for him to retire. But at least a half for one game, a half for another game. I mean, a quarter for one game. Peyton Manning was there. I'm just saying, 60 yards in 3 games, fresh off of $70 million. And the dude that talked about you were targeted 6 times, caught the ball once for 8 yards in the Super Bowl, and you going like this? Really? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'm just saying.
Peyton Manning passed away before the playoffs started. People forgot to tell him.
I'm just saying.
He wasn't even there.
You know what
Brock Osweiler was
let me tell you what I'm really trying to say.
that.
Let me tell you what I'm really trying to say. We've been talking about the great receivers. We had that discussion yesterday.
Yeah.
We brought up top 5 receivers. Did we mention Demaryius Thomas? That's all I'm saying. We talked about guys, we were debating, because the Madden football, Damien, we talked about Odell Beckham Jr., we mentioned Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, Des Bryant, we even mentioned A.J. Green and a couple of, we even threw in the name Alshon Jeffrey. All I'm trying to say is this. We didn't bring up Demaryius Thomas. He got $70 million. All I'm trying to say is, I get that, because he does have the ring, but you got to show up this year is all the brother trying to say. Am I wrong about that, Damien? Am I wrong about that?
Now we got Mark
Am I wrong about that, Damien? Damien, am I wrong about that? Am I wrong? Hold on. Let me ask a question. Am I wrong about that?
No, listen. No, you're not wrong about that aspect. He does need to show up. But all the receivers you pretty much brought up. I mean, let's pair up the quarterback with those receivers.
I understand that.
Let's
Can I
pair
ask
up
you a
the
question?
quarterback.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr. They getting 1 catch for 8 yards in the Super Bowl? Yes or no? I don't care if I'm throwing a damn football. Are they getting 1 reception for 8 yards?
No.
In the Super Bowl?
No, I don't think so.
Hey. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying.
That's all I'm saying.
One reception for 8 yards.
That
That's what I'm saying.
response was so clutch.
I'm just saying the clapback
Stephen
was.
A. He shut him down.
The show is ending. Damian Woody, did you not just say you agree with me? Yes or no?
No, I'm not gonna go that.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did. I know it hurts.
No, because you're trying to.
I know it hurts. I know it hurts.
You're trying to reel me in.
I did already.
I agree with you one time. I can't.
I did already. Yeah, that's emotion talking. That's emotion talking.
The question was, did you like the way? Did you love it?
I hate it.
Approve of your message, Demaryius. I loved it. It's 3 versus 1. We all loved it.
Y'all can sit there and love it all you want to. All 3 of y'all wrong.
Back in April, the Panthers offered Josh Norman a deal under the non-exclusive franchise tag. Then after contract discussions, pulled the offer, resulting in Norman becoming a free agent. Norman then signed a 5-year, $75 million contract with the Washington Redskins. Norman was tied for 5th in the league in pass breakups last season. Norman, of course, has been very outspoken this offseason, taking on Roger Goodell, the Redskins' name, Odell Beckham, Demaryius Thomas, and even taking shots at his former team. So we welcome Damien Woody to the desk. Now, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Are you going to start trouble today? Because I'm hoping you get this man hot again.
No, I just speak truth.
Yeah, you've been on fire.
That's all I do.
The last 2 times we've had you.
Call him the eye of the hurricane.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's calm. It looks pretty good. And then, whoa, is a storm.
Bam.
I just call it like I see it, bro.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, we're going to have you do that on this subject right here. Were the Panthers right, Damien, to let Norman go?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they were right. And here's why. You know, when you look at the Panthers' defense, they're built on their front 7. You know, they got ballers in their front 7, whether Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, K1 Short, Starla Tulele. Those boys ball, which allows guys like Josh Norman to do his thing on the back end. They play zone. They're a zone defense. They're not, Josh Norman's not the type of, corner that locks down a guy man-to-man, follows the receiver all over the field. He plays zone defense. So when you're the Carolina Panthers, why spend quarterback money on a guy who's just going to play on one side of the field, playing in an area, not locking people man-to-man? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I disagree with you. No surprise there. Here is why. I don't think that was their motivation. I would totally agree with you if it was just about football. I don't think it was just about football. I think that initially, if you remember, they had an offer on the table with him. They got upset because he was playing hardball because he thought he was worth more than they were offering. And then as a result of that, they pulled the offer off the table to a point where I was told at the time that he was actually close to being willing to accept that offer before they yanked the rug out from under him. That was my issue with the Carolina Panthers in terms of what they did. You're absolutely right. The strength of their defense is their front center, particularly with their linebackers, Kuechly and Thomas. We all know that, and we know that gives your corners room to operate, particularly in a zone scheme. He goes to Washington now. The secondary is like opposite Carolina. That front seven is big time in Carolina, but in Washington, it's your secondary with Breland and Norman that's supposed to do so much damage that it'll give you time to get to the quarterback. I guess what I'm saying to you is this. Josh Norman, mouth and all, because they're talking about how he's got so much freedom now because in Washington and Jay Gruden ain't tripping over the way that Carolina might have tripped in terms of silencing you and making sure that you say the right things. I think we need to be careful about that. In North Carolina, I went to school down at Winston-Salem State. That's the Bible Belt, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's not about people wanting to silence you or whatever. It's the Bible Belt. The rules are just a tad bit different, you know, down south as they are up north of the nation's capital. Now, if it were me and I was saying that, I understand. I mean, to me, it's more plausible. But Josh Norman is from Greenwood, South Carolina. He went to school at Coastal Carolina, and then he played for the Panthers. I mean, you should be very, very familiar with how things are done down there. So it's really not an organizational thing as much as it is about them being a Bible Belt, and there's a certain way they want players to ingratiate themselves with that community out there. But the flip side to it is that you're the Carolina Panthers. You just came off a Super Bowl appearance. He was widely considered the third best player on their team, arguably their second best player on defense, even though I would say third because I'm looking at Thomas and Kuechly together. Right. And I just say to myself, to me, you try to keep a good thing together. Here's all I'm trying to say. Here's why you lost before the Super Bowl is different, but you try to keep a good thing together.
Here's why the big guy's right. Because it is quarterback money per year, essentially, that he's looking for, that they offered in terms of what they
quarterback money. It's more than
basically that. It's like, you know, $14 million, I think, something like. It's a lot of money to pay a guy who's not really a shutdown corner per se. And in terms of his own feelings, and he said this, you know, like deals that were coming his way that the Panthers didn't want him to see because they were all about promoting Cam and Kuechly. And I really do. I mean, I hate him now because he's on Washington. I'm a Giants fan, but I really do like Josh Norman because of how competitive he is. But this idea that he's upset about that because they wanted to pump up those two guys. Cam Newton might be the best football player in the world, and Kuechly is a better defensive. He has more defensive value than Norman. I mean, Kuechly is in the conversation for best defensive football players in the world. So if you're third best, and you're right, when you bring up maybe the fourth best, they're not going to pump you up on a team that, as you mentioned, the geographical location plus the kind of team philosophy is we don't do that kind of talking like they may be more permissive of it in D.C. But if you're the third best guy at best, why are they pushing you like you're the best guy? I get that.
So let me get back to what you were saying just a minute ago. So you're basically saying because he's an outgoing personality that was, in your opinion, the reason that they decided to rescind the franchise tag and let him walk.
No, I'm saying that when they originally had the offer on the table and then they yanked it out from under him, if you had never decided to make him that offer, that would be different. But because you decided to make him an offer and he wanted to negotiate a better deal for himself, you were like, bump it, we're going to move in a different direction. That's the impression that they gave. Because when I spoke to him, and I spoke to him directly in the immediate aftermath of Carolina rescinding the offer that they had given to him, it was a shock to him. If you remember, at the particular moment in time, his agent would presumably drop the ball, per se, and all of that stuff came into the mix. So what it reeked of to me was an organization that was basically trying to strong-arm you and say, there's a certain way we want you to act during negotiations, otherwise we're going to rescind that offer. And that kind of ticked me off because I'm looking at it from the standpoint of Damian Woody is an important cog to a Super Bowl contending wheel. You're fresh off a Super Bowl appearance. You've seen Richard Sherman get his money. You've seen Patrick Peterson get his money. You've seen Darrelle Revis get his money. And then your time shows up and you're universally recognized as one of the top 5 quarters in the game, it shouldn't be an issue with you asking for what the market potentially allows. And that was the impression that was given by the Carolina Panthers. And I had a problem with that because I feel as a player, if the market allows you to challenge that you're worth X amount of dollars, you should be able to try and negotiate that as opposed to having the rug stripped from under you, figuratively speaking, just because there's a way we do business and we don't like it. Similar to Antonio Brown. Yeah, the Steelers want to wait, but he's Antonio Brown. He's the best receiver in football. I got a real problem with the fact that the Steelers don't want to talk to him, and they're holding hard and fast to some rule about only in the last year of your contracts, but we'll make exceptions for the quarterback. But you ain't going to make exceptions for the best wide receiver in football. I got a problem with that.
Well, here's the deal. We see things differently because I see it as Carolina obviously puts a certain value on a position that they feel like on their defense and their scheme that they can plug and play guys in.
But then why make the initial offer is what I'm saying.
Well, listen, any organization is going to try to keep a really good player, but they're not going to go overboard to try to pay a guy who they clearly feel is not the elite type of player, guy who's more of a system guy. And on top of that, they still have to pay K'Wan Short their stud defensive tackle, a position that they favor more.
You're right, but what I'm asking you, Damian, is this. You make the offer.
Right.
Doesn't he deserve the right to turn it down? You didn't even give him that. He woke up one day and you took the offer off the table. There's a difference between that. Hold on. There's a difference between that and saying, this is our final offer, take it or leave it. They didn't do that. What they did, he woke up one morning, wait a minute, I was thinking about taking this offer, and now you're telling me it's no longer there. We've moved on. There's something wrong with that picture. You wouldn't agree with that as a former player?
That's just the way the business is done. We know the NFL is a cold world. It's a cold business.
That's not what I asked you, David.
I understand the business side. I've seen many type of deals like that happening in the National Football League. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that from owners.
So you've seen a team
like that.
So you've seen a team not give you a chance to accept or reject their final offer?
I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about other players. Yes, I have. I have. Yes,
okay, well, that's new to me.
Yeah, I have.
I didn't know that. That I didn't know.
Gentlemen, let's end that conversation there because there's more debates we want to get into and have time for. Damian, you're going to stick around, which we appreciate.
Is he?
He is. He's staying put for the rest of the show, Steve.
Yeah, he's scared of you, man.
If we're lucky.